to start off by asking you a question.
Oh, geesh.
When you were a kid, what was the first movie that you ever went to see? We're trying to tie this back into the movie this week.
Because it came out in the year of my birth. Is that where we're going with this?
Well, no, it's just because it's a movie about a kid becoming an adult, and we do a podcast. So what was the first movie that you remember from your childhood?
So in fairness, I don't actually remember at all. I literally have very little memory. But I guess that it was Lion King, and I confirmed with my family, which said that it was Lion King. However, I got terrified and had to leave the theater, which sounds very much like me.
So you stole part of my answer. So I actually remember the first movie I remember was a double feature. So it was Lion King, and then Angels in the Outfield.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, why haven't we done that one? Heartwarming.
Just want the Angels to win a pennant.
We'll have to do one when we do our sports month,
I guess.
Anyways, so what is this week's movie since you chose it?
It's my choice. This week we do Big. We are watching Tom Hanks in Big.
And we're first-time watchers.
Yes, first-time watchers because it came out when I was 2.
When I was born. So, yeah. I'm Shay.
I'm Tyler.
And this is Cinematically Correct. And yeah, we're doing Big. So we've already been crucified for not having seen this movie before. So you guys can stop. We've rectified the situation. We have now seen it.
We fixed it.
Yeah. Right. So is there other movies out there that you're going to attack us if we haven't seen? Because we probably haven't seen it. So you might as well tell us now so we can just get ahead of this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Basically.
But okay, before we get into our thoughts on the movie, do you want to do the beer?
I will do the beer. So this is Robot Fish IPA. Kings County Brewers. So they were the people that were wonderful enough to send us a free beer for Zombieland.
Yeah.
Double Tap. So
we love them to start with.
Can't say enough about them. And Zombieland beer was fantastic, by the way.
And they were just so nice. They were just easy to talk to, and they were just all around good people, and the beer was awesome.
Yeah.
That said, I know that he's probably not going to like this beer, so I want to make it clear that it's not because the brewery is bad. This brewery is amazing, and we always recommend them. He just doesn't like this type.
Their can art is superb.
Yeah, seriously. On every can I've ever seen by them.
Yeah. So they're also out of Brooklyn, New York, which this movie is strong ties to New York.
Yes, it does.
And Robot Fish because it's a toy company.
And because he wanted to make a robot that turns into a bug, and we thought that this would be something he'd support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So. That was actually very satisfying.
Oh.
Expected.
Yeah, not my thing. It's.
But do you think that somebody that likes that type of beer would like it?
It's not as Christmas tree as most things, but it's definitely got.
And by Christmas tree, you mean IPA-ish?
What is an IPA?
I'm trying to decipher your wording for those who are listening that cannot see the can.
So yeah, it's definitely got a good bit of mosaic hop in there, so it does have that Christmas tree-ish vibe, but it's not terrible. It's not. Certainly not the worst one I've tried for the podcast.
And again, you're not smashing the brewery. You just don't like that type of beer. I want to make sure that's clear because we love them and we don't want to bash them.
No, I'm going to buy their other beers at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they must be doing well if they're making it all the way up to Massachusetts these days.
Yeah, we're so far from New York. You're right.
We weren't able to find it before, but now it's there. In the local store that's 100 yards from our house.
That is true, actually. Okay. Anyways, let's get into this because there's some interesting stuff to talk about here. So
there's a lot to unpack for this movie. for a lighthearted kids movie, there's a lot.
Thank you so much for really keeping it light. We'll get into why I have evil eyes for you. But brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis. 12 or 13-year-old boy fails and is embarrassed and wants to be older, so he wishes at a fortune teller thing, wakes up as a 30-year-old man, and this movie is all about him trying to put together a normal life until he figures out how to go back to being a kid.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, so So you picked this movie for Tom Hanks, right?
Yes.
So you wanna talk about that?
Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
I mean, well, Tom Hanks is wonderful.
And we've done a lot of Tom Hanks movies.
Well, yeah, because obviously we have to.
No, this is one of his first, right?
Yes. So this is one of the movies that really made Tom Hanks Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
And
he's done movies before this, obviously, but it was one of his bigger
starting roles.
Yeah.
Where he was in Splash and a couple other things. But it's kind of ironic that he is Tom Hanks because he failed at acting when he was in college and he didn't get any of the parts.
Sounds
so
like...
keep trying for your dreams there, everybody.
Are you telling yourself that, or...
Just good advice in general. Don't give up on your dreams because...
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of like a Woody quote since like, you know, Tom Hanks, but I couldn't come up with one. So, there's that.
So, going into the IMDb characters?
Yeah, I mean, so we can go into the IMDb characters. Now, I will say, we did recognize some of these people, but I don't really know much about them. But there's Tom Hanks. So, he plays Josh, who is... he's the 30-year-old version of Josh. You know, kind of like a big kid type thing, because he's literally a kid. And has a job at a toy company. I think it's like Macmillan Toy Company. Something like that. Literally looks like the life I've always wanted in life. And has a relationship with a woman. And yeah, that's really who he is. But Tom Hanks is...
He's just a big kid. He's living his best life. No parental responsibility, like oversight. He gets to spend his money how he wants to. And
yeah, just... It sounds like the dream is what it sounds like.
It's like being a kid, but having people take you seriously like you're an adult. And having adult money.
Yeah.
And doing whatever you want with it, the adult money. Like,
so the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. His girlfriend, I guess, in the movie is Elizabeth Perkins.
Yes.
She plays Susan. She looked familiar to me, but I mean, other than like random roles here and there, I don't know that I know her. But did you know her?
I mean, she's, to my understanding, in everything that I've seen, more of a supporting actress, not the main character.
Are you talking down about that?
No, it's in all of the things that I happen to have seen of her, like she's not the main character, but she works well into the supporting cast.
Okay. The only thing that I have seen her in, other than like a random one show here and there, would be This Is Us, where she was in quite a bit of. But other than that, I don't recognize her. But so she plays the girlfriend at the beginning. She's really like uptight businesswoman type that seems like, you know, power suits and the...
Just gotta step on anyone that you need to get ahead, kind of.
Yes, and as the movie progresses and her relationship with Josh progresses, she starts becoming more of like a big kid herself. So
well, she reconnects with her inner child a little bit and gets grounded back to reality for what life is supposed to be.
Yes. Then there's Robert Loggia, who plays the owner of Macmillan Toys.
Yep.
And apparently his name is Macmillan in the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
He unfortunately passed away in 2015, although he has movies that were released up through 2019.
Yes.
He plays just a wonderful character, just a big kid at heart that clearly has a drive to make his toy company, you know, the best for kids, not the best company because a bunch of weird people in a room decided so, but more...
Well, like, who better to tell you what you should be making as a toy company than the people that are using your product? Like,
exactly.
You can field test and do all the marketing research and all of that. It's not going to tell you anything. It's just going to tell you adult opinions. And
yes. But he is the type of guy that I like running a company. Another person I wanted to mention was John Lovitz, because he was the creepy guy in Wedding Singer. If you've ever seen Wedding Singer, there's a scene where he's like on stage and there's a whole curtain thing and he has his eyes, and I think I've rewatched that about 80,000 times in my life, and it creeps me out every time I see it, and so his eyes are burned into my soul. But he plays a coworker of Josh's. Right. So you look like you wanna...
Well, so you passed off Robert Loggia was in Independence Day.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which is one we've already done.
Oh,
yeah.
Who knew?
He was the general.
Well, thank you for pointing that out.
And we passed Elizabeth Perkins. She's actually my Lord of the Rings reference.
We passed. You could have stopped me.
I know. Elizabeth Perkins was in Try 17 with Elijah Wood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guess who my reference is?
No.
You can't? You haven't figured out my pattern yet?
You're gonna do John Hurd?
No, I'm not. I have a reference for Deborah Jo Rupp, which is Kitty in That 70s Show, if you guys don't know. But she was in a movie with Lauren Graham. The movie was called Lucky 13, and Lauren Graham is the main character, and Lauren Graham is Lorelai Gilmore. Yeah. See, that's actually a good one. I had some really, crappy ones of, shows we've already mentioned a lot of times and things like that. But no, I went for it. So you can't...
And you called that right away. And
that she was Kitty from That 70s?
Kitty from That 70s Show?
Well I said that we definitely know her. I just couldn't place her.
Well, you were wearing your glasses, so I will give you a bit of an edge on that one.
Wow. You can't just give it to me? Okay. Anyway. Okay, so... Any other characters you want to...
I mean, all the rest of the characters are basically ancillary
characters, yeah.
I mean, the tough businessman ex-boyfriend was kind of a dick, but he's been that same character in every other movie, basically.
Yeah. There is a funny thing that the sister in the movie is an uncredited child actor who, to this day, nobody knows who it was.
Yeah.
So there's somebody out there who's just laughing all the way to the bank like, yeah, that was me. I had that role and none of y'all know it. So I want to know who it is. It could be anyone among us.
Could be you.
No, I don't. I mean, I really have no memory of my childhood, but I was also a newborn at the time of 1988. So I feel like the math was not working in my favor.
No, that child was probably 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, unless I made a deal with Zotar as a newborn and then, became a 2-year-old and then decided I didn't like that, so I regressed. So, I mean, that's logical.
Yeah, that's one word for it, yeah. Logical.
So, anyway.
I have a few other fantastical, just not possible, impossible.
Impossible. Yeah. Okay, anyway.
Oh, great.
Yeah, there we go. It happened. So, anyway, you had asked how you think how I would be or you would be if we woke up at 13 and then the next day we're 30. So...
I would basically be Josh. 100% would be spending adult money.
So you'd be the same as you are now? Or
yeah, basically. I really...
But, what would be different, do you think?
Well, I mean, just there's so much more carefree life when you don't have to worry about anything.
Okay.
His time is his because he doesn't have any obligations after going to the office and collecting a paycheck.
Obligations as in a family and stuff?
Well, he doesn't have to go visit family because he can't. He doesn't have any friends other than his 13-year-old friend that comes to visit him.
So visiting people is a hindrance, is what we're saying.
Well, no, he just has an abundance of free time, is what I'm saying. And he can do whatever he wants.
This sounds not great, but I think I know what you're trying to say. That you're trying to say that when you get older, your
time becomes less your own.
Becomes a little bit more full, I guess is.
Your day becomes less your own day and more about things that you have to do at times.
I guess. Okay. Now, do you think you would be doing the same job?
That I currently have? Probably not.
What do you think you would have done?
Probably fireman or...
Fireman? That feels so random.
I don't even know.
I'm just curious. Do you think your personality would be different at all?
No, it'd be the same.
Literally?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think you'd be different, just based on some things I know about you. But anyway, for me, I mean, I would be very similar. So, I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I was very old while I was young. I just, when it came to money, I was always kind of planning ahead and saving, and,
you were the same person that you were when you were 4.
Yeah, I mean, So... in that respect, I'd be the same, but I do think my job would have been different. And when at that age, I was 100% not going into healthcare. My mom was in healthcare. My aunt was in school to be in healthcare, which she is in now. My brother was constantly going to doctor's appointments every single day. Like, it was kind of like that is where I will not be. And then that's where I ended up before I quit.
And do what you currently do, which is be self-employed.
And I would have never known that I would sell clothing for a living. So there's that. I probably would have ended up being a teacher because at the time I taught stuffed animals in my room. That lasted pretty much most of my life. So until my chalkboard broke. But so that's probably the only difference, really, though. My personality would probably be very similar. I mean, you've seen videos of me when I was probably 13, 14.
Yeah, you're a bit of a bossy, sarcastic person.
So me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So
the same person.
Yeah, basically. So, yeah. So one of the things you mentioned that was interesting about this movie was how different kids had it back in the 80s. Like how Billy was able to kind of move around freely and hang out with an adult. And
well, that would never fly these days. Like, you can't let a 13-year-old child go from the suburbs to New York City alone.
Oh, why not?
Because if any authority finds out, they will take that child away for protective custody.
That's probably fair. I mean, I also thought it was strange how easily he got into the building for the offices. Like, any office building I've ever worked in, there was a key card to get into the building. And then when you went up the elevator, some elevators had key cards to get in the elevator. But even if they didn't, there was still a key card to get into your actual, like, office suite.
Well, I think that he was aided by the fact that it was a toy company and they probably had children testing the products in the building.
That's fair.
So, I mean, yeah, it's not all that believable, but at the same time, it's more believable than going to, like, an accountant's office.
Yeah, I mean, fair, but still, like, I feel like if we tried to, like, go to a local toy place, there would be a lot of security.
I'm betting you there is, because there's proprietary information. They might actually shoot you on sight.
I don't think it would be that far, but anyway. The other thing you had mentioned to me was the different perspectives between adults and kids and, like, how that's portrayed in this movie.
Yeah, it was a bit of a refreshing, kind of uplifting thought to just kind of take a second to think about things, where he gets his first paycheck and his coworker that scares the crap out of you was like, yeah, they really screw you, it's $187, and he's just going, it's $187, I've never had $187. This is amazing.
Do you remember getting your first paycheck?
Oh yeah, it was great. Like, I was like, all of the money is now mine.
See, I was a waitress, so for me, my first paychecks, so the way my company worked, when you first started training, you get, like, actual checks, and then you move into waiting tables where you get, like, $2. So at the beginning, it was like, yeah, like, I'm making all this money, but then I felt like I regressed when I moved into waitressing, which is actually a promotion, because I was like, wait, but I'm getting these, like, $3 checks, and it took me a little bit to, like, process, like, oh, that cash you're getting, you need to add it to the check. Like, it took me a little bit, because nobody knows me, but the way I operate when I have cash is I put that aside, and I don't use my cash. I only allow myself to use a portion of it, which was $20 a week, no matter how much I made, and everything else was paid out of paychecks. So for me, because I operate that way, it was like, I went from having, like, $200 to $20. What happened here? Like, it was just a, Yeah, it was a weird thing.
A wonderful change in my life. To have money and then be able to do whatever you want with that money because it's your money.
And then you went to sales only and your life just died.
Well, I mean, my first ever job was a summer job. Like, it's...
Yeah, you were a lifeguard, right? Or not lifeguard,
I worked
boat
at
person.
a boat rental place's best summer job ever. You sit on outside all day.
Looking at your skin, you must have been perpetually sunburned.
Oh God, it was that was brutal. Yeah.
Anyway, so do you want to talk about the toys he invented? Because first of all, best job ever. Okay, like, to be able to go and just play with toys all day and say what kind of toys you wish existed.
His friend was like, wait, they pay you to play with toys? Suckers.
Yeah, right? Like, I mean, best job ever. But we do have something close to that locally.
Yes, we have Hasbro.
Now, they won't hire me. So, Hasbro, if you're listening, I am very disappointed in your inability to hire me, although I've applied multiple times. But I will forgive you if you can find a spot in your company for me.
That's extortion.
But anyway, in seriousness, no, we do have Hasbro very close by, and they have like the Mr. Potato Head outside, and it's just so heartwarming to see something like that.
And Furbies are everywhere.
Yes, and I do know people who do work there, and apparently it is just as amazing as it's shown on this movie. So, like, all of y'all, I'm jealous.
I mean, that sounds like a great job. Like,
they go to movies sometimes, like on company time. They play with things, like
I mean, that in like video game tester and all of those.
Oh, so we're gonna watch Grandma's Boy, so we can talk about video game testers.
Like those are the dream jobs. Like that, just you get paid to do what you enjoy anyway.
It's fair.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm in. But yeah, so I mean, he did invent a few toys. So one of the first toys that he invented was the robot turning into a bug.
So Transformers.
Yeah, so I got conflicting things about what came first, because they was talking about Bionics as well as Transformers, and it had said on one of the articles I read that those Transformers actually came up before this movie, but then I read later that they didn't actually come out until the 2000s. So I don't actually know what came first. But either way, it was a very good idea, regardless of whether or not it already existed and they stole it from something. It was still a very good idea.
I mean, Transformers were the greatest toy ever when I was growing up. Like, that just...
But when you were younger, wasn't it mostly vehicles?
Yes, it was.
So I don't know if the insect thing existed then or didn't. It does now, but don't know. If it didn't, then, I mean, whoever wrote that part of the script should get some credit.
Royalties?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I do remember my brother growing up, who's younger than I am, was playing with Bionicles all the time.
But those were... I thought those came out a little bit later than Transformers. I don't know.
They're way after Transformers. My brother is much younger than me. Not Brian Ethan.
Oh, I'm thinking of Brian, and I'm going, this math doesn't add up.
No, not my brother. That's 2 years younger than me.
So your brother the same age as my sister. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. So high school age us.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, because I was trying to make that math work. It wasn't working. The other thing that he invented, and I'm putting all that in air quotes, in the movie was the Choose Your Own Adventure comic book video game thing.
Totally sold on that. Like, that's a huge thing. Like, there are video games that have tried to do that, and some of them have come close.
But I have to imagine, so they were saying in the movie that the microchip would be very small, and then you'd be able to switch in and out what Choose Your Own Adventures you have. But I have to imagine, to have that many different choices, it has to be quite a bit of programming.
Well, I mean, the original versions wouldn't have had that many choices. They had like 10 choices across the whole thing. Yeah. So it's the illusion of choice.
Gotcha.
Just because there's a set program. But...
Right. Well, right. I mean, there's only so many things you can do. You can't go without it. I mean, the thing that it reminded me of the most, which is horrible, and this is a terrible version of his thing, but do you know all those apps that they have where there are like these stories that you like click through and you have to like choose what they do? Like, it's like, Sally broke up with her boyfriend, and is she going to move out or try to get back with him? You choose. Like, you know those apps?
Well, there's those, and there's then just any kind of game that has just the binary choices, which is just, you either choose the right one or you die, and half the time they don't even make sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, the apps the reason I was referring to the apps is because they have like all these tangents, and then each choice, they have different tangents that go off of it, and it is an app, so it is electronic, and it is terrible graphics, but cartoonish.
Right. I mean, those are the games themselves that are done well. Those are the ones that I usually would gravitate to, like the things that you have freedom of doing whatever you want. Yeah, because it's never the same game as the one you played yesterday.
Yeah, that's fair.
I play a lot of those games.
Yeah, I mean, I do quest type games, so that kind of has similar, but no, not really. But anyway, so those are the things he invented, in air quotes, which I still think, he could, as a kid, go back and like maybe try to pitch it again as a kid and see if they take the idea from a kid.
Well, I think it was the perfect combination, because he has the ideas that are the right ideas because he is a kid, but they're taking him seriously because he's an adult.
Right.
Or it looks like an adult.
Right. So what he needs to do is write them all down and then mail them in anonymously and get, the traction going. And then when he gets older, he can be like, see all these, I can prove that I made those ideas. So now you need to hire me because I have all the experience.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Anyway. Okay. So there's, other than that part of the movie, right? The other obviously big arc that we have in the movie is his relationship with Susan, which...
Yes.
We'll get into the elephant in the room. I know you guys want to know, and we will get into talking about that. However, so she starts off as a very... I didn't think I was going to like her. She came off as just annoying and mean and just awful. And I honestly don't really know how they ended up together because, so they see each other at that party. She's mean to him, and he is oblivious to everything, and then... invites her to his house, and then they jump on a trampoline and everything's fine. Like, that's how it seemed.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I'm not really quite sure. I also don't know how she fell for him, because...
She was with the other douche face in the first part of the movie. Like, they were having breakfast talking about their strategy to destroy him.
Right.
For half of the movie.
Yeah. And I don't really understand how she fell for him, because he never... exhibited any emotions like that towards her until she like overtly put herself in that position. But like it wasn't like in a normal situation where like there's kind of like a little bit of sparks or there's a little bit of like,
it's back and forth. There's a repartee.
There's something. There's some feeling there.
Exactly.
Even if somebody has to initiate, there's generally something. He was completely like, I mean,
13-year-old
do you want to
boy.
sleep over? I'm going to have the top bunk. Like he was very like...
Well, yeah, it's just, oblivious because he's a kid and he is not at that point in his life.
Right. But generally, if I had met someone in my life and I was interested and I was getting that kind of feedback, I wouldn't
You'd
feel...
move on.
Right. I wouldn't want to pursue that because it feels icky.
Yeah.
But, okay. So, yeah. So that relationship is a little weird. But she does have a really good character arc and probably one of the best in the movie.
So she does. She goes from tight-ass and miserable career woman that's willing to kill anyone to get ahead to an actual person.
Right.
She connects with her inner child and remembers what life is supposed to be about. Is about it having fun and enjoying life, not getting as far as you can in your job because that is going to leave you unfulfilled and miserable.
Yeah, basically. I feel like I've always been in touch with my inner child. Like... I am a child. I think maybe because I was always an adult that the child side of me...
You don't have an inner child. You have an inner child that was always an adult.
Yeah, but like I have never been the one that's like focused on only work and everything work. I do work hard, but I always want to adventure and I always want to play games and I always like that's just who I am because I think the child in me just stayed with me.
We went out today to get blue cookie dough ice cream.
No. Okay, guys, this is a sore spot. I asked for ice cream with cookies because there was a picture of ice cream with cookies on Instagram. So we went to the place that had the cookies with ice cream picture on Instagram, and then he gave me the ice cream that I ordered, and there was no cookies. I just want everyone to feel that pain, okay? There was no cookies. So, I got that out. I feel better.
There was cookie dough in the ice cream.
There were supposed to be cookies on top.
Cookie pieces on top, yes, I know. And they probably did that specifically for Instagram. You're going to have to let it go.
Anyway, my hopes and dreams were dashed today. Thank you for reminding me of the horrible experience that happened.
Horrible experience? You got ice cream. Like, how is that a bad thing?
I wanted ice cream with cookies. Anyway, thank you for sharing my horrible experience. I hope everyone felt my pain. But anyway, so other than that, though, is there really, his relationship with Billy, that was...
it's reminiscent of every adult-child relationship because adults do kind of get caught up in their own stuff. Like, that just is reality. Like,
yeah. It's sad. It's actually really sad when you hear but this is important, as if you're not. I think we've all heard that at some point in our life, and it's just a crappy feeling of because I thought I was important.
Well, and then you do it to kids that you know. Like, it just happens. You don't even mean anything by it. It's just, can you hold on a second? I'm doing something that I have to focus on. And then afterwards you realize you feel awful. Like it's.
You've outed yourself, but
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I haven't done that yet, but I'm sure it's coming. But anyway, okay. So do we want to get into the conspiracy theories of the web, because we all know how I feel about those and I love them.
You do love conspiracy theories.
Okay, so let's start with the Mandela effect. Can we?
Okay.
So if you guys don't know what the Mandela effect is, it's essentially like a group of people misremembering something.
Yeah. So Berenstain Bears, cup of noodle.
Yes, which was one of our first movies that came from.
The first Manchurian Candidate.
Yes. So if we do find a Mandela effect, we will talk about it because I love them. They're so interesting. But in this case, the Mandela effect would be for the supposed alternate ending. So what everybody collectively seems to remember is that there was an alternate ending where Susan was decided to become a 13-year-old girl again. Went to the Zoltar and asked him, and Josh sees her in class and thinks, oh, wow, that looks just like Susan. Come to find out it is Susan, and she did it to become happily ever after with him. Apparently, what people are saying is that the scene that everyone is remembering is very close to 13 going on 30's ending
14
scene.
going on 30.
Oh, it says 13 going on 30 on everything I read, but okay, 14 going on 30.
Well, there's 13 going on 30 with Jennifer Garner, but I think I saw 14 going on 30.
Okay, well, anyway, a different movie that was popular at the time with females, and they're like almost putting that ending onto this movie,
right.
Is what people are guessing happened, because apparently everyone that does see that ending says, yes, it's very similar, but I swear it was the ending to Big. So, granted, we have not seen this movie, so we do not misremember it that way because we've only ever seen the one ending.
There's no ending where she's in the classroom.
Yeah, I spent about 20 minutes Googling, trying to see if there was any piece of this anywhere. You know, a video, a statement from the director, anything, and no shred of evidence that this exists. But people are very sure. If you go onto Reddit, there are a lot of threads where people are like, no, but it happened. Like, it is there. It exists. Screw you for not thinking it exists. Some people are claiming it was only a made-for-TV part, and so anytime it was on TV, it came on, but it was never, like, released anywhere else. But, like, people are adamant. So I'm curious if any of you guys misremember it the same way.
Well, if there's a made-for-TV moment or show,
there should be video
there should
of it.
be evidence on the web. Somewhere.
Yes. So I am curious, because I know a lot of you guys have actually seen this movie and saw it back then. If you remember the ending that we saw, which was that he just went back to his normal life and she went back to her normal life. Or and I think the ending was him skipping down the street with Billy.
Yeah.
Or if you remember him being in a classroom with the 13-year-old Susan. I'm curious. So let us know, like tweet at us or whatever, because if this becomes
we know the answer is the one that he's walking down the street with Billy.
But I'm curious if it's a real Mandela effect, like in that it extends beyond just randoms on the internet. If there's people that we know that actually experience it too.
All right, fair.
So anyway, okay, this I love. Okay, we all know how I like horror, so this is gonna be fun.
What is the real life story of what happens to Susan?
Oh, you want to talk about this part? Okay, we'll talk about this too.
Yeah.
So in the ending we saw, Susan drops him off.
The kidnapped child.
Yep.
Back at his parents.
And sees him go into the clothing. People that saw her leave the office know that she was with Josh, or she was at least attempting to be with Josh. She followed him out. I mean, you can make the deductions.
Yeah.
I think the taxi cab driver drove her to the place where he was.
Well, the taxi cab driver drove him. She followed in her car.
Okay, so he followed. Billy told her where he was going. So, I mean, we do have at least one witness who knows that he was a kid from an adult and whatever. But, I mean, who's going to believe a 13-year-old kid during all of this? So, anyway, the question becomes, what happened to Susan? Once he became 13 again and went back to his life, what happened?
Probably brought in for questions on a missing person report about her
involvement with said missing person?
Boyfriend and coworker and missing person, Josh Baskin.
Yeah. Now, do you think the parents would be trying to find the kidnapper since the kidnapper did call the mother?
Well, I would be very surprised to see if they don't interrogate him on where he was to try to find out some information. Also, I'm very surprised that when he's dropped off, there's no kind of police presence or kind of cameras.
Yeah, my parents wouldn't just be like, oh, she's kidnapped, but the kidnapper says she's fine, so, like, we're good with that. Like, no. My parents would have had, like, every cop on the force out trying to find me.
Your parents already have cameras on the front door.
Well, right, but, like, no, I don't know a single parent that would have just been like, oh, but, like, the kidnapper said he was okay, so, like, I'll just, like, wait and see how it goes. Like, you know, cool.
Well, right, and then there's therapy because they're not going to believe the story. There's going to be trying to get where he actually was and who kidnapped him.
Yeah.
It's going to be a whole freaking debacle.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole thing. And then there's also the therapy that she's going to have to go through. Like, I mean, she just realized that she had a adult relationship with a 13-year-old kid.
That looks like he's 8 years old at the end of the movie where she sees him change back.
Right, and she has to live with the fact that no one's going to understand what she just went through. There's no one she can talk to that's going to think she's in the right mind.
No, she'll get committed.
Yeah, like that. So that she has to keep all of that to herself. And like, yeah, they made it like, oh, she's, you know, found the child in herself. Well, that died when she saw that whole thing happen because I'm sorry, but that would grow me up real fast.
The whole, maybe you should keep my number at the end too. It's
yeah.
kind of like,
it's
girl.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that. Anything else you want to say about what happened in real life, Susan?
Well, like, she probably was let go for lack of evidence because they never found the adult Josh Haskins' body.
Yeah.
Like,
but then there's also the question of would the company be investigated for fraud? Because this person that they were paying and had all these great ideas and whatever has no social security number because it was a locker number plus 012. There's no record of him existing other than a 12-year-old kid. So did they hire a 12-year-old kid and violate child labor laws? Or did they use his name fraudulently? Or did no, like, there was no person at all existing and they're funneling money into, like, some fake person? Like, what's going on?
I mean, that's also fair because, yeah, if they were to get audited, because of course they would get audited because his social security number is not real, and then he's also not filing taxes because they paid a person that's not filing taxes. That's going to cause so many problems.
Exactly. So there's a lot of questions that are just kind of like left for us to just live with.
Yeah. So many unresolved issues.
Yeah. So much for lighthearted, but here we are. Are you ready for
the one that you wanted to jump to right away?
Yeah.
The horror?
Yeah. So this is something that was brought up on the internet, and I'm in love. And I would have never thought of it this way, but I'm in love. Okay. So, we ready?
We're ready.
So, the internet thinks about this movie as a horror movie. Okay? You ready?
Okay.
Okay. So, you got to think about it from the perspective of the mother.
I actually had this thought watching this movie going, she's handling this way better than she should be.
Yeah, she is. But did you think about it the way the internet thought about it? Because they got deep.
Well, probably not. What did they say?
Okay. I'm so excited. Okay, so basically it was first you see your son become a 30-year-old man and claim that it's your son, and you're like, no, this is an intruder lying and he's kidnapping my son and it's this horrifying thing, right? So you're scared and there's somebody that tried to break into your house, and then your son is gone, you cannot find your son, and then a person calls the kidnapper with clear information about your son, and you're assuming that your son is now kidnapped, and then you finally get your son back, and after receiving multiple letters from the kidnapper, and you finally get your son back, and he shows up in a suit the size of the kidnapper, presumably, and you are like, okay, this is creepy. You're going to have to put your son into therapy because he says that he was 30, and like, what the heck is going on? And his little friend corroborates the story, which, like, okay, so now they're both crazy. But then the son starts growing up. It starts looking just like the kidnapper. And you can't say anything because you put your son into therapy for like years and years on years for something that he said was true. And now you know it's true. But if you tell anybody, now you're going to the loony bin and you're the only person that saw him.
And you're kind of descent into madness because you're like, I remember that face.
Yeah. And you're the only one that saw him. So who is going to believe you? Like, all horrifying. And now you have to deal with the fact that you put your son into therapy for telling you the truth this whole time. Like,
and didn't accept him, and he had to figure out his life without you at 13.
Yeah, he had to go live on his own in a crappy hotel room for quite a while in New York.
There were gunshots outside.
Yeah, and then had a adult relationship with a woman at 13 years old because you weren't there to protect him because you didn't believe him. Like,
that's messed up.
It's dark.
Yeah.
Okay, that's dark. So all I'm gonna say is, if anybody does decide to do that movie, like I'm thinking, who's the guy that did You?
I
forget the director's name, but anyways, he's really good and he does really dramatic movies. I need to see it. Like I need to see the whole thing, and I need to know who would play the mother. Like who could be that intense, like descent into madness type. Oh, the girl who was from West Wing that just was in that movie about the narcissist.
You're talking about Invisible Man and Elizabeth Moss?
I am, actually. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like she would be really good. But either way, whoever, we need to see this. This is what I'm talking about. These are the type of remakes that I'm okay with. When it changes the movie, it took an inspiration, but it changes
My thought would be Lena Headey from Game of Thrones.
Okay. I don't know her from Game of Thrones, but I've seen like bits and pieces of clips from her and stuff. She's got that
commanding, intense vibe.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down. So like basically, if we just pitched this, and I think that now Hollywood needs to like take up the
mantle.
Take the torch. I was thinking mantle, but I didn't know if it fit. But yeah, so there's that. Now it's not our idea. That came from the internet. That's not our idea, but you know. It's free on the internet, so that's like copyright free, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's really interesting. But other than that, I'm trying to see if we covered everything, but I think we did. So do you have history?
I actually have a few history minutes.
Really?
Tyler's History Minute.
Yes. So the first, I want to talk about the first amusement park in the country.
Okay.
Which is part of this movie was filmed there. And it's at Playland Amusement Park in Rye, New York.
Okay.
Which is just outside of New York City.
Oh, that's where the ending was, right?
Right. It's right on the Connecticut border, basically, with Greenwich.
Is it still in existence?
It's still in existence.
Road trip!
They had closed for 2020.
I mean, for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons, because New York was the heart of the epidemic for quite a while. Mm-hmm. But they opened in 1928 and are still in operation.
Wow, good for them.
They are also, I believe, on the Historical Landmark Registry because they are the first amusement park in the country.
That's so cool.
And then I wanted to talk about a couple of toy companies.
Okay, I like toys.
So you know Hasbro. Which is a Rhode Island toy company.
Yes.
Started in Providence, actually. In 1923 by three brothers.
The Hasbro brothers?
No. Henry, Halal, and Herman Hasenfeld.
Oh, okay.
But it's Hasenfeld, so Hasbro.
Bro.
Yeah,
Got
that's where it comes from.
That's awesome.
They actually started off making pencil boxes and using scrap pieces of fabric. Basically, early pioneer recycling to use it for a different purpose. They switched over to toys, and they started making toys in 1930, and then they made the major change to be mostly toys 1942.
Should have found out what their first toy was.
I don't have that. They make G.I. Joe, Transformers,
Mr. Potato Head,
Furby, and they're very well known across the world. We actually sent a Furby to England.
Yes, we did.
To torment Lad Baby.
Yeah, that we found at the yard sale and not at Hasbro, but
yeah, we found it at a yard sale for $1, but it was the creepiest Furby that has ever existed.
It was horrifying, actually.
And the other one was Milton Bradley.
Oh, okay.
And where was Milton Bradley founded?
I have no idea.
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Really? Look at us go over here in New England.
Yeah, New England used to make everything. 1860, Milton Bradley started off by selling clean-shaven Abraham Lincoln lithographs.
Really?
But Abraham Lincoln grew a beard and screwed that up for him, so he had to make a change.
Oh, Abe.
And so he started making toys, with the Game of Life being the first board game that he came out with.
We have that game.
I know. So yeah, that's what I got. Last thing, Peter Harris was the CEO of FAO Schwartz during the filming of this movie, and the boss, Macmillan, was based off of him because he's by all accounts, a very childish, fun-loving, goofy person, and every company he's ever gone to has been instantly successful.
So basically, we needed him in our life for our entire life because we're missing the whole success factor over here.
Well, it's kind of also an endearing story because he started a company stacking boxes, and then 13 years later, he was the CEO of that company.
Oh, good for him. I love stuff like that.
And then he moved on to FAO Schwartz. He was involved with the San Francisco 49ers for a time, a bunch of different companies, and all of them have seen huge rises in their profitability.
Good for him.
So that's what I got for the History Minutes.
Well, that's a good history minute. That was actually interesting to me. It wasn't just boring history like you usually do. Okay.
Hurtful. Hurtful.
Sorry. Love you.
Audience asks.
I'm going to say that before I posted this Audience Ask, I hadn't seen the movie. Okay? I posted a little early to give you guys time.
Well, because usually Audience Asks, they let us down because they don't have any questions.
Yeah, you got... Okay, so you guys gave us questions, and I'm really happy for that. I probably should have watched the movie first so I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't. Okay, so here we are. This is from two different people, but they kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to read them together, and it's going to count as one question. So Gidget Von LaRue, she has a podcast as well, Retro Cinema, asked, do you find it icky a grown woman has sex with a child? And before you answer that, Positivity Wolf, which also has a podcast, and also he just created his own solo podcast, so you guys can check that out, asked, and what lasting psychological effects do you think it had on her and him?
So it is horrifyingly unethical to sleep with children.
Well, yeah, statutory rape is wrong, so we're going to just put that out there.
Rape and pedophilia is horrible, just across the board.
Yes.
Having said that, there's no way for her to have necessarily known unless he told her.
Yes. That said, I will say that because of the way he was acting, I would have assumed, not knowing that he was a kid, that there could have been some developmental issue, whether it be just lag in learning, whether it be something more serious, whatever it may be. And in that case, I also think it is a problem that she initiated a sexual relationship. Now, I'm not saying that people can't initiate sexual relationships with people with disabilities and things like that, but you need to be fully informed of what you're doing, and the person himself needs to be fully informed of what's going on. In this situation, that was not handled properly.
No.
So that I have a little bit of like a moment issue with, but I try to accept it as a movie that we're not supposed to read too deep into.
We aren't. I mean, and then going to the therapy aspect, I think that she's going to be in more therapy than he is because he seemed kind of hyper-focused as a 13-year-old boy, which is a really cop-out because it's not acceptable for a grown woman to have sex with a 13-year-old boy. But in this movie, it's clearly he doesn't have a problem with it. Even though it's gross conceptually, it's just, you got to let that go.
Yeah, I think he's going to he'll be in therapy more for the whole turning into 30 and then going back and just like that whole experience.
And your mother crying for years afterwards because
and nobody believing you and that whole,
he's definitely going to be in therapy for that.
Yeah. So I don't know how to say that in the right way because it's obviously unequivocally wrong and there's nothing to say to defend that, but it's a movie and I don't think we're supposed to kind of read into the legality of the movie.
Because legality, the movie, it's Tom Hanks who is of age and fully capable of making those decisions. Yeah. So it's a very gray area because he's not actually 13. He's Tom Hanks.
Exactly. So there is that. So you like Tom Hanks, so I'll ask you this one. The Laughs and Rec podcast said Tom Hanks in the running for the greatest actor ever or totally overrated?
Oh, he's in the running. I mean, yeah, put him up in the acting Hall of Fame. Like, who else are you going to put there?
Well, Leonardo DiCaprio,
Meryl Streep.
What's the guy that was in There Will Be Blood?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson.
Henry Fonda.
Oh, God, I love him. Paul Newman. Like, Jimmy Stewart. Like, yeah. So, I mean, apparently we have a lot of them. But, yeah, he's amazing. And he's such a good human that it makes me love him even more. You know what I mean? It's just...
Yeah, he's notorious for making people's day. When he's out for a jog on his day, like, he has no reason or... He doesn't have to stop and make someone's day. Like, he just goes out of his way to make people happy.
Yeah, I mean, I know I told you this, but there was an anecdote online, and I don't know how true it is, because, you can't believe everything you read online, but I want to believe it, because they said that they were on a bus having a tour of Hollywood and seeing all, like, the celebrities' houses and, doing celeb spotting, which we totally tried to do while we were there.
Yeah.
And Tom Hanks, pulled up next to them in his car and stuck his head out the window and said, "Spotted any celebrities yet today?" And it just feels like something he would do, and it just made me, I don't know, just made me happy thinking that he would do that.
There's also a case where he's at, like, an event, and he's reading someone's text over their shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like, Tom Hanks is behind me, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then he's like, you can tell them that Tom Hanks is also reading your text.
Just great. Like, it's adorable. So, anyway, yes. To me, yes, he is. Since we don't normally get a lot of them, I'm actually going to do one more. And it kind of goes off of what we were talking about earlier. So, Team Murph 207 says, do you think the FBI will get involved in the disappearance of grown Josh Baskin? Will anyone put together that the name of the two missing persons were identical? And also, how did Josh get that loft with no social security number or credit history? How much therapy will Susan require after sleeping with a 12-year-old? So a few of those we haven't unpacked. So do you think the FBI will get involved?
Well, they investigate all missing people because that's part of their mandate, because oftentimes kidnappers cross state lines.
Right.
So that is their job.
Yeah. Now, do you think that people are going to put together that there's a grown and a young...
I mean, I think they'll find it a very odd coincidence that there was a 12-year-old child by the same name that was also missing for a period of time. But I don't think that there's no way you can connect those dots. Like, you can't.
No, what I would assume they would think is that the kidnapper assumed his identity.
Well, it's just that he's using a fake name, or something happened and then he just disappeared.
Right.
Like, he was using an alias. He picked that kid and disappeared.
Right. And then how did he get us the loft with no social security number or credit history?
There's no answer for that, because
the only thing I could think of is that he paid all in cash. Like, he just paid up front, like, for so many months or whatever, and just did it that way.
Well, I mean, he kept getting raises at the office, and they seemed like a very well-to-do firm.
Yeah.
So he likely was making some serious cash, and he's just like, here's $2,000.
Yeah. So money talks. I mean, really? I guess that's the only thing I can think of. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. If you pay someone enough, they're not going to ask any questions, because...
No, you pay them to not ask you questions.
Exactly.
So, I mean, at the end of the day.
I'm paying you to shut up and leave me alone.
Exactly. So anyway, yeah, that's what we have. I did want to mention that VHS and Chill said that their podcast is also going to be doing this movie, so it might be fun to, like,
Compare
and contrast. Yeah, so if you guys want to check that out, just wanted to mention it. But anyway, so you guys did really good with Audience Ask this week. So maybe I need to be posting it before we've actually seen the movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, spoilers, but I was very confused. I actually thought that you guys had said that a teacher slept with a minor, so it made it much more dark in my head until I saw the movie, and I was like, okay, good, it wasn't a teacher.
Still creepy, but...
Still creepy. I think I was mixing it up with Happy Madison or something, but...
probably.
I don't know. But anyway, that all said...
It's Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. How dare you?
My problem.
So, reviews and ratings.
Reviews.
Do you have them?
So, Rotten Tomatoes has it at 97.
Good for them.
For the critic score. Audience is only 82%.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, I guess the problematic parts of...
I mean, I think that's more in line with where I would have it. I mean, the acting was fine. It's Tom Hanks. How do you complain about Tom Hanks?
You don't, ever.
So 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no great score. There's no real great message other than looking at things through the eyes of a child.
Right.
But like, there's nothing to this movie other than a lighthearted movie.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I was going to do 7 out of 10. So, I mean, I liked the movie. It was a good movie. Nothing bad about it or anything like that. I don't have the nostalgia factor that I know a lot of people have, and that's why everyone loves this movie, and unfortunately, I don't have that. But, I mean, there wasn't much to it. I would watch it again if I needed, like, a movie to just kind of pick me up or whatever. And it is a movie where a female director, Penny Marshall, actually got $100 million at the box office for the first time as a woman director, which is an amazing achievement.
It's an achievement in cinema for women.
Right, and that's amazing and awesome. And she was Laverne from Laverne and Shirley, which that does have nostalgia for me because I used to watch it every day before I went to school. So there's that. But given that I was a female director, I don't think that the female things were handled well. I don't think that... I didn't pass the Bechdel test, first of all. I mean, which is fine. There's a male lead or whatever, but there could have been moments. I mean, Susan could have talked to Mrs. Patterson about work or whatever. There could have been...
She could have talked to the mother at the end, or...
Right, or the mother could have had a scene talking with some other, women. You know, there could have been something, okay? Yeah. There wasn't. And there was also a lot of moments where I know boys will be boys, and... 13-year-old boys like to look at women, but there was, him looking down her shirt and checking out a girl's butt and all of these things. And while I get that you were trying to show what 13-year-old boys do, it just felt a little icky and unfortunate that that came from a female director. So that I take off points for that because I just feel like if you're going to be a pioneer in the space of a female director, I wish that it could have been a little bit more progressive.
Would the scene that is questionable with the adult relations have changed if she was not wearing a bra? Because that was in the original screenplay.
That's gross.
Yeah.
That's not to say that not wearing a bra is gross. I think that sexualizing that whole thing makes it not right. So
I think that would have taken significantly more points off.
Yeah. So, I mean, and obviously we're looking at a movie from the lens of 2020 and giving it to 88, which is a different time, and I get that. But we are rating it in 2020 because that's when we watched it. So that's what we're doing. Anyway, that's everything I have.
Yeah, what is next week's movie? It's your choice.
So next week we are doing Current. And I got to tell you guys, the more quarantine goes on, the more our options are getting limited. So next week's movie is going to be The Rental. It is a movie with Alison Brie and a guy from Shameless. And it's supposedly about, it almost seemed like Psycho, but through Airbnbs is what it seemed like. So
it's a horror movie based in a Airbnb or a rental property.
Right.
So basically Psycho reimagined.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. So we'll see. We haven't done horror in a little bit, and hopefully, it's the only thing I saw that looked halfway decent. So guys, just bear with me.
I mean, to be fair, we have done The Other Missy recently. So there have been some movies that have been...
Yeah. We're pulling at straws to find current movies. So anyway, that's it. So I just want to tell you guys, if you want to see us, talk to us outside the podcast, you can find me on Twitter at cinematicallyc, and Tyler is BlameTylerCC. If you want to talk to Tyler, then make sure that you tag me. I'm on email at cinematicallycorrect@gmail.com. You can really find us anywhere. If you type in at Cinematically See, you'll find us. Check for Audience Ask. I'm going to try to post them a little bit earlier than normal so you guys have time. But if you don't see it, you can always just tweet at us and we will use them. But yeah, that's it. So thank you to Jake at Athos Music for our intro and outro music. And we will be back next week with The Rental.
Thank you all for listening.